It's Zach Eady with Purdue Men's Basketball, and you're watching Boilers in the Stands.
Welcome back to Boilers in the Stands. It's been a couple weeks, but we are back today to talk through the big room, and it's kind of a big question mark what's going to exactly happen with this room. I'm your host, Joe Jackson. Joining me, as always, is my co-host, Kraig Bowers. Kraig, other than it being like 500 degrees out, how you doing?
Not get up in time to was I muted there at the beginning?
Yes. You're good.
Well, we've only done this show like 100 times now. No, doing pretty good, but yeah, man, it's hot outside. I have not gotten my run yet in today. I did not get up early enough to do it before work, so gonna do a little night run later on in the old town of West Lafayette. Man, I think we got to give a shout out to our fearless leader, Greg. Off the top of the show, for those of you guys that don't know, that he got injured in that like escalator accident, and was it the Minnesota?
I think
Milwaukee. Yeah, Milwaukee. And he just went under knee surgery. And for those of you guys that didn't see, of Greg going through the grocery store yesterday, post-surgery. So he is slowly on the mend, on his way to recovery. I think he still has to do a second knee yet.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah.
So, yeah, definitely shout out Rags. Hope everything recovery. I know surgery, it sounds like went well. Recovery and then doing it all again. Everything goes well. He's going to keep being Braggs, though. That's for sure, without a doubt. So,
did you see he went live on Bears football? Like, it had to have been like 30 minutes post-op because there was some trade.
That's Braggs. I mean, he grinds, and he's gonna do what Braggs is gonna do. Yeah,
no doubt. All right, you ready to dive into the big man room?
Yeah, we can. I think before we do that, because we've been really, really bad about this off the top, please like and subscribe. Like, we had a little bit of a break, but we're back, probably doing roughly once a week. Now I'm looking good in front of Braggs too. We're asking people to like and subscribe, and now they should like and subscribe because Braggs did make an off-season appearance. While battling injuries, he still shows up. So like and subscribe, Braggs. Hey,
hello.
The show.
How are you?
We just showed the video of you in the grocery store a second ago.
Oh, really? On the scooter? Scooter?
Yep.
Yeah. Just working here in the garage a little bit. Saw you guys went live. So doing some background stuff here. But yeah, I know you guys said you wanted me to jump in. I appreciate you guys. I saw in the Boiler Diehards, you guys wishing me well the day it was going on. So definitely appreciate that. It was obviously it's brutal. I've never shout out to Robbie Hummel and everyone that's went through ACL injuries. I would have never imagined it would hurt as much as it does. Like I've been leading up to this moment here for like a month now, and I definitely underestimated just how bad this would hurt. And and so when I woke up from my anesthesia, I just have never experienced anything like this, and it's a pain that doesn't go away. You just have to kind of sit in it, right? So it's one of those things where you just learn to deal with the pain, and eventually eventually we'll get through it. I got physical therapy that starts tomorrow. Today I was able to take my brace off and take my bandages off, which that meant now I can get ice closer to my knee and stuff. So, but overall I'll survive. It's definitely an experience. It's kind of holding me back from doing a lot of the things that I want to be able to do, like mow the lawn, but we'll make it, man. So how's everybody doing on you? How you guys doing?
Doing well.
Yeah,
Doing
yeah,
well.
good.
I know it's like we haven't spoken. Like literally, this is like I'm treating this like a phone call for all of us, for all of you that are tuning in, because this is the first time we've spoken in months, like face to face. So we talk in text all the time, but I haven't really had a chance to talk to you guys with everything going on. So, it's good to see you guys. I miss you.
Yeah.
No, things have been good. Just counting down the days till basketball's back. I think we're at 70 until Purdue season opener, which I assume is also the day the Final Four banner should be
going up.
revealed.
That'll be fun. Isn't it crazy how fast it goes? I mean, football season starts here in 13 days, almost 12 days now, and it's just one. I'm on the air right now. Thank you. And so, so it's just crazy how fast it all goes by, right? Summer's done for the most part, even though it's 105 degrees right now. And, it's fun. Fall's getting here. College football starts. It's already started, right? Number 10, Florida State already went down. So we're starting to get into, the thick of some of the fun time of year for sports fans. So, but I said on Twitter yesterday, and I mean it, I will only talk basketball with Kraig. I refuse. I will not talk football with this man, Joe. I refuse. He's trying to piss me off every day. I see what he's doing. I'm not stupid.
It was one time.
Nope. I am going to ignore. I don't care what you say. You are going to be ignored for every football thought you have, period. I'm not even going to let you bug me with it because I want to get along with you. I'm not going to make you my football rival.
No problem. I can live with that.
So, I don't know the context behind that.
He's just trolling me with the Bears. I'm not even going to get into it. It's nothing, Joe. It's nothing. So I'll let you guys get to the show because I know a lot of people are excited to hear you guys' analysis, as am I, and in terms of what's going on with the big men here at Purdue. And got a fun season ahead of us, and I'll start popping in here more. We'll start trying to line up some guests as we get closer to the season. So it's going to start ramping up for sure. And, so just be on the lookout for more announcements. And I appreciate you guys as always, keeping this ship, floating. And I also thank you again to everybody, you guys, and everybody from, that tunes into our show and from Boiler Diehards Facebook group that had the well wishes for me with my injury. I'll be okay. So that being said,
give us one Purdue basketball hot take for next season off the top of your head.
I mean, is it really a hot take to say that Purdue is the favorite to win the Big Ten? Like, is that a hot take, Joe?
Because to definitively say it, maybe a little bit. They're definitely in that upper group, that top group.
Because I think for Purdue fans, they don't view that as a hot take because we all understand what this program is. But when I talk to all the guys at CHGO Sports, which consist of Northwestern, Iowa, Illinois, Michigan, Wisconsin, there's a lot of different representatives of different programs there. They all just seem to think Purdue's going to fall off. And I kind of laugh at them. I'm like, okay. Like, I don't think you realize the basketball factory that Matt Painter has created here. And yeah, it sucks that Kanan Catchings and the program couldn't see eye to eye and he goes on to BYU, but they're not going to skip a beat. They're not going to skip a beat. Zach Edey's gone. We all wish him well at Memphis and his NBA dreams, but it's going to be a different style of basketball. But the consistency of the way they run their offense and their defense, that's the staple of what Purdue basketball is. So you plug and play. They've just done Matt Painter and their staff has done such a good job of lining people up. And I know this is nothing that we all don't understand that are tuned into this show, but I just think there's a lot of people outside of the Purdue realm that just don't understand what this is for, the golden era of Purdue basketball. I have zero doubt they're going to win the Big Ten again. So there's my hot take for the day.
I've seen more college basketball people pick Purdue to win it than not, I guess, of just like not that I created a spreadsheet or anything, but I'm saying just scrolling down through, I think I've seen Purdue pick to win it more than I've seen them not pick to win it, and always in the top 4. So, I don't know that it's a hot take, but
I like it.
Fans of other teams might think it's a hot take. Yeah,
for sure.
Fair.
All right. Well, I'll let you guys get to the analysis. Talk to you guys here in a little bit. Let me know if you need anything.
All
Yep,
right,
take
sounds
care.
Good.
Yep,
See ya.
later.
Adam Beasley from the comments says 100% Purdue is playing for the Big Ten title again. They're going to be in that conversation for sure. Yeah, we'll see where they end up. He adds a hot take. Lawyer leads in scoring.
That's why my eyes got big.
I mean, I don't like. It's definitely a hot take. I have not heard it, but I don't hate it. I don't hate it. We did talk about guards and wings in our last episode from a couple weeks ago. So if you haven't caught that one, definitely go check that out after this one. We've also done like specific individualized breakdown discussion about each of the incoming freshmen. That's also on YouTube. We are also on Apple Podcasts, Spotify. I don't think Google Podcasts exists anymore. If it does, we are there as well. So a lot of Purdue basketball content to keep you going through the off season, as we are 70 days away from November 4th, which is opening day. I'm going to be 100% honest. I know vaguely that Purdue is playing Creighton in a scrimmage. That is about the extent of the information I know about that. I don't know if you know anything more, Kraig. I just know sort of that I think they're playing a scrimmage.
Yes, they are, and I do have more information about that, but you're gonna have to give me a second because I was not ready for that. So
Do we want to come back? We can come back to that at the end.
We can come back to that, yeah.
So let's get into the big man group. That's what we're all here for. Shout out Braggs, though. Definitely wanted to have him on if he was available. Starting with the big man group. Obviously, there's a big hole. No Zach Edey. He's off to Memphis in the NBA. Like, that's a lot of points. It's a lot of minutes. It's a lot of everything. Like, that's what's going to happen when the two-time National Player of the Year is gone. When you talk about the big man group, the first person everybody's going to talk about is Trey Kaufman-Renn, and what can he do in, I guess this is year 4, but his redshirt junior season. And now where it's kind of his role of being the guy in the post. Last year, 17 minutes a game, 6.4 points, 4 boards, 53% from 2, 33% from 3. And I guess the question is, like, what is the role for him? Like, is he 32 minutes a game, the absolute guy? Is he more of like a secondary type dude? Like, what are, I guess, your thoughts for TKR this season?
I mean, I think he's the guy, right? For me, in terms of Purdue in the post, in terms of what he showed he could do last year, started every single game last year. In terms of production, it was maybe a little up and down through the season, but I don't think there's any doubt going into the season that he's going to be our primary post-up option from an offensive standpoint, hands down 100%. Where exactly those minutes are spread, I think, is really up for discussion in terms of how many of those minutes is it spent with him at the 5 and Purdue is playing Purdue's version of small ball, and how many minutes of that is with him at the 4 with a Jacobson or a Berg backing him up at the 5. But for me, because of the way Purdue generally wants to play basically every year other than that 2018-19 Carson Edwards year, where Carson and Klein were just bombing threes from everywhere and Grady Eifert was bombing threes. I mean, I don't think there's any way you don't just see a massive jump in production from TKR offensively. And when you extend him over 40 minutes, right, I think he would have averaged like 15 points a game if we go over
stats if he won them.
15 points, 9.4 rebounds per 40 minutes a game. So I know we're not estimating him at 32 minutes a game or at 40 minutes a game, but say 32, 34 minutes a game. I mean, I think there's no doubt in my mind that he gets to that 14 point range per game.
And I was digging also into some stats now, because this is now going to be TKR without Edey. Like, that is a different thing than TKR with Edey. So I looked last year, and this isn't like a crazy big sample size. So I would say take things with a little bit of a grain of salt. 158 minutes that TKR played last year without Zach Edey on the floor. His per 40 minutes, 18 points, 10 rebounds, 2 assists, shot 46% from 2. We're not thinking he's playing 40. We're thinking he's probably closer to the 30 mark. So then I took it to stats per 30 minutes. And without Edey on the floor per 30 minutes, he was 13.5 points, 7.5 rebounds, 1.5 assists. And it's like, I think he could be a little bit, his points can maybe bump up a tiny bit compared to that. But like, if you told me that TKR averaged 13, 7 and an assist, like in 30 minutes a game, that feels pretty accurate. And he did that again, 158 minutes, which is basically 4 games worth of sample size total, without Edey on the floor. Like I just thought that was interesting how it almost worked out really, really well. Of like, hey, that's like realistic of what he could do this year.
Yeah, no doubt. And I mean, even from a rebounding standpoint, I mean, I thought that he was really improved there last year in general. But just looking at his percentage, offensive rebounding percentage, defensive rebounding percentage when he was on the floor, it was even higher than I thought it would be, honestly. I think it was like almost 16% defensive rebound percentage, which wasn't, I mean, it was lower than Zach's, but it wasn't as much lower than Zach's as what I thought it might be. From that standpoint, and I think just the energy and the aggression that he played with this last year, I think it's just going to go up even more when he's on the court on his own. And I think the way it sounds, Purdue's going to surround him with 4 guys out there that can all bomb away from outside. And it's going to make, I don't think people will choose to double him as much as they did Zach. And I think it's going to make it really difficult to do anyway.
Yeah. And then maybe we should we jump ahead to the next guy?
Well, first of all, if we're talking about TKR in terms of one thing that you really want to see out of his game this year, what's one area of improvement or something that you want to see excel even higher this year?
I would just say decision making within the post. Like I think we know he can score, and I think he has some upside passing. I just don't. It's kind of similar to like the Lawyer thing, and I talked about it on our guard show. Is like if Lawyer, to me, if he could just get downhill and then kick out sometimes, that solves so many issues. I think TKR is kind of in the similar boat of like he can get almost just too focused on like I'm going to go score. Now it's like everything's just different, and I can't emphasize that enough. Like last year when he's getting the ball in the post, it's probably going to be because they were running a legit like play for him to get the ball in the post because Zach Edey's on the floor, and so maybe there's just that mindset, but. Just kind of the decision making. He doesn't. I don't think he has to be like an insane passer. If he averages an assist or 2, great. But just being able to understand, okay, this like I'm not getting to my shot right now. Let's see if somebody's open. Just kind of that balance. What about you?
I mean, I guess for one thing, I thought he put a lot of work into to be able to guard opposing 4s last year, and you saw him get quicker. You saw him get more mobile in his ability to do that. And now if he's going to play the 5, it's a little bit of a reverse. So like there were times where I thought he got bullied a little bit and overpowered when he was playing the 5 defensively. So want to see how he holds up there, and can he hold his ground, and can he be a little bit more of not necessarily even a shot blocker, but just make that shot a little bit more difficult than maybe he has in the past. And then to me, I mean, the other big thing is improving from the free throw line, because at 56% from the free throw line, if he's going to be Purdue's feature post players for years basically have been high quality free throw shooters. And I think it'll come up because he'll get there more consistently. And usually once he hit and got in rhythm after a couple times to go into the line, it got better. But that number is going to have to jump up.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. I like both the points, especially on the defensive side. Like fouls are he's gonna have to also not foul. And just be able to stay on the floor for 30 minutes if that's kind of the role that they're going for. Matt Sis says, can he be a pick and pop guy? I think for right now, like if I'm thinking through like an opposing coach's mind, you're probably living with any sort of TKR 3. Now, does TKR have the potential to be a 36% guy that makes you think? I think so. Kind of like I'm gonna say Stephen Carl. I'm gonna double check his percentages before I go there. Yeah, okay, no. Stephen Carl was 31, and 45% last year. So those 2 years prior, right? He was only 31%, Stephen Carl, from 3, but you still like considered him and you understood that, hey, he can pick and pop. I think there's that potential where he isn't just like an elite shooter, but enough to be like defense to be like, hey, maybe I do have to kind of consider guarding him out there.
Yeah, no doubt. Let's jump to a guy that we talked about a little bit already in the last show because he's going to play in the front court and the back court. Cam Heide, 6'7", 205-pound sophomore. Last year, averaged 3.3 points, 1.9 rebounds, 0.4 assists a game on 58% shooting from the field and 45% from 3. I know we've talked about this before, but it sure sounds like Cam's might be the starting 4 with TKR at the 5 and a little bit smaller ball type of rotation. we talked about him at the 3 in the last show. As you picture him at the 4, how do you see Purdue using him as a 4 compared to maybe how they would use Caleb Furst or TKR at the 4? And then what areas, if any, are you worried about from like a defensive standpoint or something like that?
Him at the 4 is like, and I, even when watching high school film, I was like, I really think Cam Heide is a 3-4. Like, I think he can play both. Usage wise, like, he's just, I keep going back to he's going to be Mason Gillis that can actually attack the rim. And that's not a slight to Mason Gillis. Mason Gillis is awesome. And he's probably, maybe Heide isn't quite the shooter that Gillis is, but he shot the ball really well. He can spot up in the corner. He can be a guy that can, I think in theory, kind of pick and pop. He can be like a handoff guy and kind of slip out to the perimeter. I would expect a lot of that. There's also, I would expect him offensively to be a guy that you station in the corner. Now you're running a high pick and roll, because I think there's going to be more of that this year. And so Heidi's a guy you can either skip past to for a 3, or he can kind of just cut and be, it's called like the dunker spot, like just outside of the paint, where you can kind of chill, maybe get a drop off, go up for a dunk or a lob or something like that. I think there's going to be, honestly, a lot of what he did last year, kind of mix it with a lot of the stuff that Gillis ran offensively. Like he just feels offensively like the perfect 4 to me, really, in college basketball. Like, just that's kind of what you want: shooting, athletic, can move well. Defensively, I guess that'll be the biggest thing, is what does he look like guarding opposing 4s. I personally don't have, like, if teams are going to go 2 big men, like a Michigan or somebody like that, then I think there's some concern. There's definitely concern of how much size he's given up. There's also the other side of the ball of, like, this is what Purdue has dealt with all of last year, is like, yeah, we have 2 bigs, but then there's the other side of the ball. Like, how are they going to guard it? Things like that. I don't know. I think he has the body to, for the most part, hold up. There'll be some mismatches for sure, and maybe those are some games where Purdue matches more, TKR at the 4. To kind of answer Pierce Moberg, his question is said, are we going to see TKR at power forward and center this year, or will Coach Paint keep him in one spot? I think TKR is going to play both, and so there's going to be games where Heidi's can't play the 4, TKR goes there, but man, for the most part, I am so excited to see Heide at the 4. I think it can just open up so much offensively.
No, I agree 100%. And just how much it's going to open up the court in terms of spacing and everything else, and let TKR eat down low. Everybody on the perimeter can hit threes: Miles, Cam, Fletch, Smith. Then if you bring in Cox or Harris, either one, I think all those guys are going to hit the 3 at a high level. You talked about him not being maybe quite as good of a shooter as Gillis. But I mean, Gillis was like 47% from 3 last year, and Cam was 45%. So we're kind of splitting hairs there. And man, I think this team is going to get out and run. Yes. They did it more last year, and I think they're going to do it even more this year. And one of the things that always impressed me about Cam is his ability to catch as he's moving down court from that wing spot and just kind of step into it and go right up and shoot a 3. A lot of people, you see him kind of have to gather themselves or take a dribble real quick. And he seems to have an ability to just kind of grab, gather, and go right up when he's in transition and drill them. So I'm super excited about that. I know we talked about Cam quite a bit already in the last show. So I don't know if we need to spend a lot more time in terms of what. Okay. I was going to say, in terms of, something that I'm really looking forward to see is when he is at that 4 spot, just how does he hold up defensively against teams that have 2 bigs out there. But maybe Purdue just doesn't do it that much, or Purdue just can take advantage so much, like you said, offensively on the other end, that it drives that guy off the court.
Yeah, and I'll stick with that before I get to my other thing. It's just like, there's also a scenario where Purdue, and I don't know if this is a good scenario, there's potential for Purdue to switch more 1 through 4. And it's good going down because Heide can guard, has potential to guard. Heide can guard 1 through 3 and most 4s, in my opinion. And I'm pretty confident with that, but that's like, do you want Fletcher, Braden Smith on a 4? Probably not. That's probably going to be the biggest like swing skill in terms of what Heide can do, is just like, if he can hold up defensively at the 4, then that's going to be a big thing. If he struggles, then Painter's going to have some questions to answer. The only other kind of thought I had is just like, can we use, or do we see Cam and Heide in like setting screens? Because I think it would be fun. to see him either pop out or like Brain just throw the ball up at the top of the backboard. If you have, in theory, like if TKR can space enough, I don't know if Jacobson's shot translates right away. Like that's where it gets a little bit difficult, is the spacing with whoever the 5-man is. But if there is a 5 that can command at least enough respect, or just use like, I mean, you could do different things where you can have both of them setting screens and one of them's kind of popping and then Heide rolling. I just want to see. I want to see at least one Smith to Heide lob out of pick and roll this year. That's all I want.
I would love that, and I think we should definitely do it, Joe. You ought to get Painter on the phone for that.
Yeah, there we go. So did you have anything else for Heide? Any like?
No, I don't.
Through the thing you want to see.
Yeah, no, I don't have anything left on him. You want to jump to Jacobson?
Sure. Daniel Jacobson, freshman coming in 7. I think he's listed 7'3" now or 7'4". I forget whichever one it officially is.
I think it's 7'4" official listing on Purdue's website.
Officially listed at. Either way, incoming freshman, shot up the ranks. We talked about him in depth for about 30 minutes on a previous show, so definitely go check that out. I think the biggest thing with him is like we know what the potential is of this elite shot blocker, ability to finish at the rim, kind of still closer to a Matt Arms in terms of maybe isn't going to like bang down low consistently, little bit like, on the lankier side. Is he going to physically be ready? That's probably going to be the biggest question for him coming into this year.
Yeah, no, I don't think there's any doubt that that's the biggest question. And I mean, we saw what he could do in USA under 18 in terms of the numbers he put up. And that's when he kind of really caught all the college basketball talking heads' eyes with his performance in that event. And he played against some relatively physical bigs, but it was the, U18 team. They hadn't been on college campuses in a weight program for the amount of time that they had. Some of the things maybe seen in practice or coming out of practice, Will Berg and TKR are a lot more physical and a lot more built right now than what Daniel Jacobson is. So will he be able to hold up against that or not? I think that's going to be a big thing. We don't usually see guys make massive gains just from the time that they come on in summer to, that first game starting this fall. But any type of thing he can add to his core and just in terms of overall strength. But I also really want to see, as we think about rotations here and we say, if the starting lineups, TKR and Cam, then what's that next rotation look like? Yeah. Is that Cam going to the bench and a traditional 5 coming in, TKR moving over to the 4? I don't know. We're going to have to see how that all works out one way or another. But if TKR and Jacobson are on the court at the same time, which I think provides Purdue with a ton of advantages defensively because of Jacobson's ability to shot block and take some pressure off of TKR in terms of potentially getting into foul trouble. If we want him to play 32 minutes a game, I want to see that shot translate. Like you mentioned that, but I want to see. I look pretty good in practice. It looked pretty good in U18. I want to see that translate enough that he can create a little bit of space and step outside to give TKR room while he's playing in the low post defensively on the other end, and they kind of invert that matchup.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about him in depth. You hit on a lot of the points. It's like, what he's going to do defensively. Foul trouble is going to be a thing for him also, but also he just might not play enough minutes that it'll really matter. Painter might be, hey, you go get your 3 fouls in 15 minutes a game and it's fine. Yeah, really, really good rim protector. That's going to be A1 quality coming in for him. It's how does he fit elsewhere? And I think we'll talk about that a little. I'll save some of these points for later when we kind of go through the bigger scheme. But yeah, like in theory, he can pick and pop. I emphasize the theory because I think I'm a little bit lower on it translating from day one as some people are. I mean, he's only 2 for 9. I'm going to bring that up again. He was only 2 for 9 from 3 during high school last season. Yes, he was in a system that probably didn't need him taking those shots anyways, but still just need to see it before I truly believe it. But I mean, the defense is so good. And he's going to be with that Creighton game that we talked about, like that opposing center, Kalkbrenner. That's who I think we both comped him to Kalkbrenner, right? Like That's the upside. I got nothing really else. I guess for me, the biggest thing this year, aside from the physicality, is just like, is he a guy that gets post up touches, or is he just going to be more of a pure pick and roll type guy? That's going to be kind of my biggest question, I guess, going in offensively is how he fits there.
Yep, no doubt. Will Berg, let's move on to him. 7'2", 260 pounds center, going into his sophomore year, played 14 games last year, averaged 2.6 points per game, 1.9 rebounds per game. Per 40 minutes, though, Joe, averaged 28.3 points and 19.9 rebounds. Those are some staggering numbers. I assume we just expect that he puts those numbers up this year then, right?
Yeah, obviously. Yeah, I mean, that's the I think Berg's a really, really interesting kind of case and player of like, he was legitimately productive in his minutes. It's just all of his minutes came against the opposing teams like walk-ons for the most part. Or walk-ons or end of the bench, kind of like how he was. Like, how does that translate now to he's going to have some sort of role? Is he a starter? Is he first big off the bench? Like, what exactly goes on there? And how does it translate to against legit players? And where even as when he was in last year, it wasn't like they were necessarily just running the normal offensive throw it to Will Berg in the post. So these amount of his buckets were kind of just like, hey, I'm near the rim and nobody can kind of touch me and I'm just going to score. Is he become like the focal point in a sense of Purdue keeping their traditional big of, hey, we're going to dump it down to Berg in the post and just let him go to work? I think there's a lot of questions. I think there's a lot of good questions because most of them can be answered by like, hey, he was productive in limited minutes. We just have to see it against good comp now. My biggest concern is defensively. I have some concerns that he's just not quite a good enough rim protector. Again, small, like we just have to see it all before we really know. Just with the way he moves and stuff, I definitely have some concerns there. And I think there's a scenario where Jacobson maybe could get more minutes if his defense is just that much better. But Will Berg, there's like TKR, Berg, not really out of any of the other like true bigs, Berg might have the biggest upside this year offensively for me outside of TKR. I don't know if I fully believe that, but I think I believe it. I don't know. That's all
Yeah, I mean, it's the big unknown, right? We saw little sample sizes generally against teams at the point in time where there weren't other 7-footers out there on the floor to go up against them for the most part. Got some, had a couple of games where he got 8 or 7 points pretty quickly early in the season against like a Jacksonville or somebody that was, maybe ranked below 150 on KenPom at that sort of time. And he's gone up against Zach every day in practice. And I'm sure the coaches know what they have, but as fans, as people who analyze the game and go on shows and talk about it, we really don't know. It's just, he could come out and be that guy. Or he may not. So I think we'll be able to tell a lot even after that exhibition game. I mean, 5-10 minutes in that game, I think we will have a really good read of who Will Berg might be able to be this year. And, hopefully all those clips we saw him, hitting jump shots and hitting little hook shots and playing defensively aggressive and all those workout videos that you see posted of him, hopefully those all come to fruition because he's been in the gym. He's been putting a lot of hard work in. He's been having to battle against the most dominant player in the country for the last 2 years and not necessarily getting a lot of time to show for it. So the biggest question mark to me in this entire group, and we'll talk about it more later on too, is just, is it Berg or is it Jacobson that kind of eats up those minutes at the 5 when we're not playing the small ball option?
Yep. Mad says Will, big unknown Berg. And that's accurate for right now. It really is. Did you have anything else on Berg?
I guess just the one thing I want to see was kind of similar to you in terms of defensively, except for me, I'm just a little bit worried if he's quick enough laterally, if he's got good enough movement in his hips to guard when we play pick and roll. Obviously, he's going to be drop coverage. Yeah. I would assume Jacobson will be too. I don't think TKR will play drop coverage when he's playing the 5. But even in that, when he gets in that pick and roll situation, is he going to be able to hang good enough? Because for a whole lot of teams, and especially non-Big Ten teams, we just see a really high dose of that.
Yep. I got nothing else really on Berg. Let's jump to Caleb Furst. 9 minutes a game, 2.2 points, 2.4 boards. Obviously not the season he or really anybody wanted from him. Also one of the tougher gigs in the country of being the backup to Zach Edey, in my opinion. Like I truly do still believe that, both from just a physicality standpoint, a referee standpoint. I just think that's an insanely tough job to do. He struggled, and that is well known throughout for kind of just with the season, especially given his potential in that. What's your confidence level in him? What are you thinking surrounding him this year?
My confidence level, I don't really have a gauge for that at all. Man, because in those first 2 years, there were a lot of games where Caleb Furst was exceptional. He was a 6'10", super mobile, pretty athletic defender in that position. We've talked about it before, but that PK game against Duke, how important he was in that game. Freshman year, he shoots 42% from three. Maybe not the hugest sample size, but that's dropped down to closer to like 27% over the last 2 years. And it's just a matter of him getting his confidence back. And I really wonder with this group, this lineup this year, if there's times when, especially because I think this team will move more, I think this team will run more. And you talked about his mobility and able to get up and down the court. If he can kind of slowly find his groove again at the beginning of this season and start to reestablish himself.
I'm sort of in on Caleb Furst. I'm going to be honest. I really think him just potentially getting a more defined role, and maybe that's not the easiest thing to say given that we know TKR and Heide are going to play their minutes. The rest is quite literally a toss-up between 4 dudes. But a lot of the things you said, the versatility, he can play this 4-5. Like he can be him and Burgess, who we'll talk about next, are like the guys who you compare next to TKR, and in theory, they can play more of the 5 defensively, but on offense, they could potentially space out on the perimeter a bit more. I don't know, the shot's going to be what it is. You're hoping he can get to low 30s for the season, and you just kind of live with that. But I think a lot of like this space and pace type thing where even if he's in with Heide at the 4, like that's a super athletic lineup. If it's like Smith, I mean, you could go crazy athletic, like Smith, Harris, Colvin, Heide, Furst at the 5. Like I think him spacing, because when you kind of look back at what he's done well, a lot of it is rolling. A lot of it is just being, either short corner or corner and cutting to the rim. And now you have Braden Smith in year 3. You have multiple guys who will space the floor even better with Braden Smith on the floor. I think there's more openings for him to be able to cut and kind of just get that movement and utilize that as his biggest strength. The finishing around the rim has to be just better. Like I got nothing other than it just has to be straight up better. And if that doesn't happen, then a lot of this argument gets thrown out the window. But I really like what he, in theory, I like what he can bring. Like I'm pretty bought in on him being, I don't think he starts or anything, but probably being the backup big, I think would be, for me, I think Caleb Furst gets it as of right now. Because and then also defensively, he can be a legit 5. He's not a Zach Edey rim protector, but I think he can be a solid rim protector, especially if Jacobson's only able to play 10 to 15 minutes a game. I think Furst can do it for the other minutes that TKR is not at the 5. He can hedge out. He can maybe not switch, but we talk about that Duke game from 2 years ago, and I know that's 2 years ago. He won that game because he just hard hedged everything against Duke, and Duke couldn't do a thing about it. And then he went and guarded 7'1" Filipowski, and I don't know. I just every time I think about it, I just keep coming back to I think he fits what Purdue needs from that backup big the best out of them.
Okay.
And I know
okay.
I rambled.
No, you're good. You're good. And in terms of what I want to see out of him this year compared to last year, I just want to see him get his groove back. Like that movie, Stella got a groove back. I want Caleb to get his groove back, man. That's it. Just play with confidence and play loose.
Terry
Raleigh. Oh, my bad. Go ahead.
He said his rebounding is elite too, and I think that's something that probably isn't quite brought up enough. Is he actually might be the best rebounder out of the group. Maybe Jacobson just by size, maybe Burgess because of some of his motor skills kind of similar to Furst. But Furst might be the best rebounder, and that's also going to be quietly needed a lot because Zach Heide is a really, really good rebounder. You bring up, because you mentioned defensive rebounding percentage. Caleb Furst had the second highest limited role. Out of the guys who played legit minutes, like consistent minutes, Braden Smith had the second highest on the team. Like it wasn't a bit, it was Braden Smith.
Right.
So rebound is going to be a big thing too. Honestly, that might be who gets this job. Like the backup big is literally who can rebound the best. All right, go ahead.
I was just going to say, let's move on to our last guy, unless you have anything else to add. Raleigh Burgess, 6'11", 240-pound forward, incoming freshman, senior year, averaged 15.4 points, 9.9 rebounds, 3.2 blocks, 1.5 assists. He kind of dropped in the rankings after an injury. At one point, he was a top 75 kid on Rivals. I got to see him in practice. I know I was kind of blowing Joe up that day of like, hey, man, like, I know we've talked about a lot of these freshmen, but I came really, really impressed with the things I saw out of Raleigh. And I don't know. I come into this year really thinking the question mark was maybe how all the guard pieces were going to fit with who was coming back and who was coming in. And in the end, have a lot more questions about how the bigs are going to pair together now that we think Cam's going to play at the 4 to start. So there's 6 guys, right? And there's 3 spots. I think me and you both have the mindset going in as we talk about minutes as this might be a potential red shirt, but I think there's a world where he's just killing it with his motor and athleticism from that position in practice and makes us all look stupid and takes the big men back up minutes.
Yeah, like if you ask me what is my prediction, I think he red shirts just because of the depth, and I think because to me it's the competition for his minutes is, assuming TKR is at the 5, it is what is senior year Caleb Furst compared to freshman year Burgess. And in my head, like, I don't think Painter would waste the red shirt on Burgess, knowing that's what he loves using, the red shirt. If he doesn't, like, he's going to use it unless he thinks he can be, I think, legitimately better than Furst. Or if Furst just really doesn't have it together. I guess there's that scenario too, but we'll think more in the positive lens. Like if Burgess just outplays Furst, and there's the potential because I think they have a lot of similarities of how they're built, being more of a 4-5. I think Furst's defense is better, but I think Burgess is probably a little bit more upside offensively at the moment too. It's going to be what they need out of that spot. And you're right. Maybe we just look stupid in 2 months when Burgess is the first big off the bench and he's averaging like 6 points a game in like 18 minutes. But I just think with how many options there are, I think it's going to be tough for him to find legit minutes.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think, if you asked me to bet today, that's where I'd lay my money down. But again, I'm just beyond Cam at the 4 for a certain amount of minutes a game and TKR getting 30 minutes a game. Beyond that, there's nothing you could tell me that would surprise me in terms of the way the rest of things work out this season. And even from game 1 to January, like I could see massive changes. So
yeah, no, for sure.
Go ahead.
I was just getting back to I had the start from earlier. Pierce Moberg said, "Who has a bigger impact their first year, Jakari Harris or Raleigh Burgess?" Even if Burgess does find a role, I still lean Jakari Harris. I gushed about him for 20 minutes on the individualized show, so definitely go check that out. But I would lean Jakari.
Yep, 100% agree too. Think he's going to get the most. I think get the most minutes of any of the freshmen. So yes. I think just from that standpoint alone, he's going to have the biggest impact. So if we start looking at all these player rotations, right? So you and I are both assuming that Cam Heide is the starting 4 and that TKR is the starting 5, correct?
Yes.
All right. So we have broken this. Lineup. We have broken this down. And again, Joe's are in gray. Now, Joe, you did this like 3 weeks ago. So if you changed anything in your mindset, this is from 3 weeks ago. So right now, as we look at this, Joe's got Cam Heide predicted at 16 minutes a game to start at the 4 spot. I have him at 15. He's got TKR playing 16 minutes at that 4 spot. I have him at 15. So really, really close together from that standpoint. And then you and I both had Furst when we did this a few weeks ago. You and I both had Furst. You had him at like 8 minutes at the 4, at the other 8 minutes at the 4, and I had him at like 10 minutes at the 4. Is that where you're still at?
Which one am I? Am I the light one or the dark one?
You're the light one.
I'm the light one. Yeah, at the 4 spot, I think that's still I would still lean that. If anything, I would maybe bump Furst just a touch. And I guess it would take away, I don't know whose it would take away. I guess TKR a little bit, maybe. No, I'm gonna. I like that. I think I like that.
Yeah, and you and I, we did these separately. We ended up pretty darn close at the 4 spot in this on the end. I texted you a little bit earlier today and said, hey, we didn't give Burgess any minutes at all when we did this the first time around, and I guess that's just the big thing for me. If Raleigh looks really good in practice, and we know with Painter, we know from Braden Smith, we know from Fletcher Lawyer, we know from Jaden Ivey, we know from Zach Heide getting the starting spot from Travion, that if he looks better than those other options, he's going to get minutes and not redshirt. So I think that's just the really big question that I have is, what does he look like? And we'll know shortly. It's coming up before we'll know it. We'll see some exhibition play, and then we might have a little bit better mindset on that. I'll let you talk about the 5, unless you have more to say about the 4.
I'm gonna be a little dumb and ask again. Which one am I? I'm the light one.
You're the light one. You're the gray.
Okay.
That's
like in the 4, I'm the top one, and on the 5,
yes.
I'm the bottom one.
No. Oh, I'm talking about font, like the 16 being in gray. I'm not talking about the gray row.
Gotcha. Okay, so I'm the top row in each.
The text color. Yes, you're the top row in each. Yes,
gotcha.
My bad.
No, you're good. Okay. This checks out more with my numbers that I had on the sheet. Okay, we're good now. So I'm going to talk about the 5 spot. I'm going to read through the numbers, and then I'm going to offer my changes that I would have. I have TKR at 18. You have him at 22 at the 5 spot specifically. I have Jake Smith with 12 and Berg at 10. You have them both at 9. I have Furst with 4, and you have Furst with none at the 5. Immediately, my thoughts right now, TKR is probably going to a couple minutes less than that at the 5. I would bump Furst minutes a few at the 5, and probably Jacobson's take down a couple. I think Furst probably emerges with the most minutes personally out of Furst, Berg, Jacobson. So I would take a couple there, throw it to Furst, but other than that, I would stick about the same. You have a lot more TKR.
I flat out messed up this graphic, Joe. I was working on getting these cells split, and I didn't finish pumping the numbers here. So that whole thing screwed up in terms of what the minutes were. So here's what we actually had. Okay. So at the 5 spot, this is my bad. I screwed up when I was making this. I'm going to hide that puppy so no people don't even see it. At the 5 spot, you had TKR at 16. I had him at 15. Okay.
Yes.
You had Jacobson at 8 minutes. I had Jacobson at 15 minutes at the 5. You had Will Berg at 12 minutes at the 5. I had Will Berg at 10 minutes at the 5, and then you threw Caleb Furst 4 minutes at the 5 spot as well. So again, at the 5 for you, you had TKR 16 minutes, you had Daniel Jacobson 8 minutes, Will Berg 12 minutes, and Caleb Furst 4 minutes.
Okay, yeah, that sounds more about what I had. So my statement still stands. I think I would bump Furst a bit more. I think I've come around to him more. I'm also very ready to be burned and after like 5 games be like, yeah, no, it's just not going to work with Furst. But that's where I stand. And so I guess we've talked through some of the minutes, right? We both agree TKR and Heide are going to play a lot together at the 4 and the 5. And then from there, we think it's going to be somewhat of a split between Jacobson, Berg, Furst. Specific minutes, maybe we disagree slightly, but it's roughly we're in the same ballpark. What is, I guess, like, one, do you think that playing, I guess it'd be a rotation of 4 bigs plus Heide at the 4. Do you think that's sustainable for the full season, or do you think we at some point see somebody overtake each other?
No, as we talk about minutes per game, I guess that's a really good point. You and I keep on trying to make these all add up to 40. for purposes at each position, for purposes of everybody listening, everything like that. But from a statistical standpoint, when you go and add up all those minutes per game for each player, it doesn't add up the way that it should for total minutes played in a 40-minute game because some guys don't play in certain games, but it's minutes played per game. So I think very much so that this is going to be a situation where somebody wins out and the rotation tightens up, just like it has for Purdue consistently over the last 3, 4, 5 years. So, I mean, I really think between Jacobson, Berg, and Furst that's going to fight out to the point where it's going to be 2 of those 3 guys getting significant minutes. I still think it's 2 of those 3 because Cam's splitting time between the 3 and the 4.
Yeah, I agree. I think in my world, like in my head, it is Furst is kind of safe, and then it's Berg and Jacobson. One of them eventually gets cut. Not cut, but their minutes get cut. They're definitely not getting cuts, but
Right.
that's kind of what I see. And then there's also potential. Like I'm working under the assumption TKR can only play 30 to 32. Like I don't think he can play more than that. But like if he can jump, then if he can play like 34, that even changes things compared to 30 minutes. How much is Heide playing at the 4 truly? Like, yeah, there's just a lot of different things that go into it. The one thing that I definitely wanted to talk about in terms of the big man group. So we agree at some point TKR will probably play the 4, whether it's alongside Furst or one of the more traditional bigs. And the thought, right, is TKR can kind of punish opposing force if that's who they're going to stick on him. My only concern and my question, I guess, is like, what does the spacing look like? Because when Purdue ran 2 bigs last season, one of them Zach Heide. That is not going to be the case. And so, like, does that concern you at all? That just from obviously not having Zach Heide, that's big, but like just from like a spacing standpoint, do you think that Purdue almost just has to go TKR at the 5 at times because of that? Of like, yeah, you can play him at the 4, and maybe you get a better rim protector, but now your spacing's just completely messed up on offense.
I mean, I guess that's why I'm a little higher on Jacobson's minutes than you. In my head, I guess in my head, best case scenario, what I envision is Jacobson comes in and can hit the 3 well enough to be a threat, whether that's 32%, not 38% or anything like that, but enough to be a threat. And he's the most mobile of the 2 7-footers. Defensively, that is my hope.
Yes.
Is that he can come in and be the 5, but he can kind of space out a little bit more and give TKR room to work down low. And I mean, I've all off season, I've just been super worried about our defensive rim protection because I thought it was awful last year when Zach was off the floor. And I think Jacobson has a really good chance of winning out in that battle just because we got to have somebody swatting.
And I agree with that. My only thought then is like, is Jacobson, in theory, Jacobson or Berg or Furst or Burgess, we'll throw him in there. Why not? Is any rim protection they're giving you, like, is that because you're going to, like, is the value of that worth what you're giving up offensively? Because I think I'm very confident that the best offensive lineup will be Heide at the 4, TKR at the 5. And this is a legit question because I don't know the answer, but like, what is that breaking point going to be? It's going to be the big thing of like,
yeah,
Jacobson's worth it at the 5 because he's just such a good shot blocker. Even if say the shot doesn't translate, it's like he's so good defensively. We just have to run TKR at him at some point because that's going to be our defensive lineup type thing. Or is it like, is there ever just a point where Painter's like, you know what? We'll get what we can do defensively with TKR at the 5. I also think that they could play differently. I think they could force more turnovers, apply more pressure with the guards and the wings. You have Heide, who I think can be like a really good wing defender. Colvin showed signs. Like there's a scenario where they play different defensively, and maybe that masks it. That's going to be that's going to be the biggest thing. Is like, what is the trade-off and which side of the trade-off wins? I guess.
yeah.
And I don't know the answer.
I mean, I think the whole thing is going to be a learning process too. And we've talked about how good Jakari are and CJ are as perimeter defenders. And I think there's a world where Jakari, CJ are in there. If Miles is vastly improved just with his athleticism, figuring out how to play team defense, where we could be a dominant perimeter defensive team. And then, you know, when you have dominant perimeter defenders, you don't have to worry quite as much about the back end because you can put pressure up front, just make it hard to get passes in general. Like teams have done to us at different points in time over the year. But I also think, excuse me, I also think too, as we talk about this in terms of who wins out in that spot, right? Like TKR and Cam and that starting lineup we talk about, like they can't play all 40 minutes together. So it's what's going to happen in those other 10 minutes. And then if you look at that rotation in terms of who's coming in from the guards, if Jakari's in there, CJ's in there, whoever comes in for TKR as the post option, then that maybe changes what you need out of your 4 and changes what you need out of your 5. And I guess, again, that's that's why I keep coming back to me thinking that eventually Jacobson wins out here, just because I think in some of those no, I just talked myself out of that. Because when I think we're really, really good on perimeter defense with this group, like that's also when Jacobson might be playing his minutes. But whatever. Maybe we just play shutdown defense and don't let anybody score at all when Braden and Fletcher and TK are off the floor with that lineup.
Yeah. What your last 30 seconds is what this big man is. It's like, no, it's this. Oh, wait, no, actually, no. I think it's that. We're not going to know till we see it. We're just giving what we think at the moment. I looked it up and I don't think I can. Oh, I could. I could maybe filter out garbage time. I have the numbers without Zach Edey on the floor. They were in the second bottom 2 percentile in terms of rim defense. When Zach Edey was off the floor, still did a pretty good job of limiting attempts at the rim. That was above average, but I'm going to see if I have to do math right now too. Okay. I'll figure that out later, because I am curious about that. Do you have anything else, I guess, regarding the big man? Actually, do you have it? I do have one thing if you don't, but I'll throw it to you first. Do you have anything else, kind of recapping, overview, big man group, questions, all of that stuff?
My recap is TKR is going to be the primary post option scoring, and outside of that, we know nothing yet.
Yeah, that's fair. I think the one thing that like really stands out about this conversation that I think we hit constantly, just indirectly, this team is going to be the most lineup versatile team that Purdue has had in a minute. We talk about all these options because they are legit options. You can play TKR at the 5 and run and gun and just space and figure it out defensively. You can bring in, and we have to see these guys prove it, but in theory, you can bring in defensive anchors that can stop anything at the rim, that maybe can work together and play super big, and you can play Heide at the 3 and stuff like that. Like, there's just so many options that when you pair that with what Braden Smith and Fletcher Lawyer at the guard spots have just done for 2 seasons now, you now have lots and lots of options surrounding them, also coming in for them. And that is a very fun thing to think about for this Purdue team. And so we didn't hit on that directly, but we basically did that concept the entire show.
Yeah, I had that in my notes as well, just in terms of the versatility. I think there's really good chances where we play, like Michigan's supposedly going to try to play 2 guys big, right?
Yep.
Most likely. And I think there's situations where you might see a Jacobson or a Berg play 25 minutes between the 2 of them, like 25 minutes in a game. And then we roll into another scenario, another game, and those guys combine see 6 or 7 minutes, 8 minutes, just depending on who we're playing. I think there's a lot of options for the way this team can attack other teams offensively and how they can substitute to have the best defensive lineup out there on the floor at any given time.
Yep. So there's just so many questions, so much versatility. I think it's good things to have, and you're just hoping, because also with that, there's so many options. There are less scenarios where like everybody out of the big man group is just not good and Purdue struggles. It's more likely at least one or 2 guys figure it out. And that's going to be the guys that you see coming in for the big man group. So I think that wraps it up for us. You don't got anything else?
Nope.
All right. You can follow us on Twitter at Boilers and Stands. If you're still watching, please like and subscribe over on YouTube. It's under Brags in the Stands. You can look up Brags in the Stands, Boilers in the Stands. It'll pop up. Appreciate all the support coming from there. We're going to be back probably next week with some sort of show. We've kind of run out of our like plans. This is what we're going to talk through off-season stuff, and we're transitioning more to like, hey, we have a few weeks to kill before the season starts. So probably we'll be back next week with some sort of show. Appreciate everybody tuning in, and we will catch you whenever that show is.